remain committed to doing what we did during the global financial crisis, supporting Australian jobs and supporting confidence.
It was Minister Penny Wong speaking just a short time ago out the front doors of the Senate there. Now, the latest report by the OECD says Australia's economy remains strong.
For more on that and other finance news, we're joined now by Rod North, the Executive Director of Bourse Communications. Rod, good morning. Good to talk to you again. So the Australian market seems to have sort of kicked back up, and indeed we've just seen the US market close quite significantly higher. So we should expect another rebound there.
Yes, that's pretty impressive because it's come off the back of what was, pretty poor sort of week last week, where we had sort of 6 days of consecutive losses. Our market was up 1.5% yesterday, Wall Street up 2%. But the interesting thing was, and in the light of that OECD prediction, which is good news for Australia because it basically puts our growth for the next 12 months at 4%, but it's not so good news for Europe and the US because the OECD is virtually saying that it believes Europe's already in recession, and if America's not careful, it could also go into recession. Yeah. But the interesting thing about that was that one of the things I always look for good news, and the spending that occurred...
Because you're a booster.
I'm a booster. Yes. The spending that occurred over the Thanksgiving period was up 7% to $11.75 billion over that Thanksgiving weekend. Now, that was quite interesting because, of course, if Americans are spending again, they're obviously a bit more confident about perhaps how things are tracking there. So, but yet there's still sort of unresolved issues of the $15 trillion of debt in the US that's got to be dealt with, and spending cuts, need to be agreed there, as in Europe. But I just thought that's quite an interesting trend because we haven't seen the spending in the US of that significance for some time, and a 7% increase from 2010 is pretty impressive.
And you've got an update on Qantas.
Yes, Qantas put out a profit downgrade yesterday for their half year, which came probably not as much of a surprise because the shares actually went up, and it was a 66% downgrade to 194 million for the half year. It's still going to put their profit somewhere between 140 to 190 million for the full year, but this is the full sort of consequences of a massive disruption that occurred in recent months, and also, of course, high fuel prices. So not such good news for the airline, but also sort of indicating perhaps that that's all been fully taken account of, because it's always interesting when you get downgrade like that coming out, and yet the market goes up.
Now, we're going to be hearing from Wayne Swan, of course, that's our top story this morning, about the revised budget that we're expecting to hear from him later on this morning. Budget cuts will have to go with that if they're going to keep to their promise of meeting their budget surplus by 2012-13. Will the market like this? Is this what the market wants to see? Cuts to spending in order to meet that surplus?
Well, I think that the market, I suppose financial circles are a little bit sceptical about whether a budget surplus can be achieved in 2012-13.
Do they care whether it's achieved or not?
Well, it's not as big an issue as perhaps I think that the government thinks it is, because it's made that promise and it obviously is hell-bent on wanting to keep it.
Well, it needs to keep its promise, but the markets might have a different...
But the markets are thinking, well, Australia's tracking along pretty well. We've got a low unemployment rate, we've got good growth happening, mining sector's still looking pretty good. So, let's just be very careful about how we actually calibrate those cuts. So I think the market isn't as concerned about it as perhaps the government is in keeping its promise.
All right, and what do you expect to happen today?
I think the market will be up today, which will be good news. Off the back of Wall Street, a good 2% rise on Wall Street will put our market up probably 50 points today, I would say.
Oh, well, we'll take it where we can get
It's all good news.
See, he's boostering again. Rod, good to see you. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much.
Now, a gunman is still on the run after a shooting in Melbourne's